Okay, welcome back everyone to the 1983 Stu's Music Quiz and the answers for you, as well as giving you the answers. Hopefully we'll give you some ideas here for some albums you can go away and listen to get to know 1983 a bit better, and maybe even a few little bits of trivia that might interest you. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The biggest selling single of the year in the UK was Karma Chameleon by Culture Club. Now, I mean, this is a year of where singles are still selling big, and they all were massive sellers here. I think they all sold 1 million actually, but Karma Chameleon sold 1.4 million copies, huge amount. Interestingly enough, apparently they were sued later for plagiarism by a song called Handyman, which doesn't seem to have much in common myself with it. I think they got a very, very small payoff for it in the end. And the album, Colour by Numbers. Okay, if you fancy listening to it, it was massive in '83, wasn't it? Colour by Numbers. Okay, you knew I was going to get this man in somewhere. I've got him in a few times, especially considering he had his biggest hit in '83. It was, of course, David Bowie with the album Let's Dance, his collaboration with Nile Rodgers. His quite considerably, I think, his biggest commercial success, which is amazing when you think of those 70s albums. It was the second biggest selling album in the UK in 1983, yet not really one of his big critical successes. But there we are. Certainly not one of his greatest albums. Who married Princess Leia this year? Well, I mean, I find this quite amazing, really, because when you think about it, the year of Return of the Jedi, the year of the bikini, the famous Princess Leia bikini, when all of us were kind of goggle-eyed at her. And who does she marry? She marries Paul Simon. Now, no disrespect to Paul Simon, but it's not exactly who you would have expected at that point. Of course, they had a very long kind of on and off passionate relationship for many years. Which kind of split up and came back together a couple of times. I think they might have married twice, actually. Of course, this year he released Hearts and Bones, a terrific album, really, really great album of his. But strangely enough, an album that had its origins in a Simon & Garfunkel comeback. They did a tour this year. They did some dates, and it was all going well, and they decided they were going to record an album. And then Paul Simon apparently seems to just have decided he wanted it to be a solo album. Took those same songs, re-recorded them in some cases as solo performances, and had it released. Another one of those situations in which poor Art Garfunkel was a little bit let down in that partnership, I think. But there you go. Great album, though. Okay, who signed a $28 million recording contract this year, which was a record at the time? It was the Rolling Stones. And their album from this year, Undercover, was therefore the last album in their kind of special distribution deal they had with Warner Brothers Atlantic. Even though, I mean, they're always produced by Rolling Stones Records. They were distributed by them. And this was then re-released a few years later, Undercover, in '86, I think, by CBS, who, of course, they signed this $28 million contract with. The first ever heavy metal #1 in the US was Quiet Riot's Metal Health. There it is. Not one that I think is particularly well known in this country, although I can be proved wrong. It's not necessarily my area of expertise. I certainly know it's got a relatively faithful cover, actually, for a heavy metal band of Slade's Come On Feel the Noise in it, which I gather was quite a big hit on its own in the US. The song that was #1 on the day I was born. Come On Feel the Noise. There you go. Don't know what that says about me. Absolutely nothing, I think. Okay, on to our dingbacks here. Ooh, looks like I've messed up my stuff a little bit here. Right, well, let's take the first one. The first one here is Punch. You can see a bit of Punch and a clock. Punch the Clock, the Elvis Costello album of the time. It contained, it was his first ever US top 40 song from there. Every Day I Write the Book. The number 7, as you can see with my little picture at the side, was UB40's Labour of Love. You see Michael Foot, the Labour leader at the time, and a nice little love scene there for you at the same time. The album, which was a collection of 10 cover versions of their favourite reggae songs from 1969 to 1972. Apparently, their big hit on it, Red Red Wine. Apparently, they didn't even know that Neil Diamond had written it. They just assumed it was a reggae song already. It was number 1 for about 6 weeks, wasn't it? Okay, number 8. This was my favourite here. It was Seven and the Ragged Tiger. You see, look, the Magnificent Seven, and there's a very ragged-looking Tiger Woods. From his arrest photo, sort of, I couldn't step away from that. I couldn't resist it. And there, of course, is Seven and the Ragged Tiger, the Duran Duran album following up Rio. Apparently, that bizarre title refers to the 7 of them, the 5 members of the band and their 2 managers. And the Ragged Tiger is a metaphor for success. That's what it is. It's a ragged tiger. There you go. Still no idea of what the lines of hungry like the wolf actually mean, but never mind. Okay, number 9. Well, there's Percy Sledge, actually. I don't know if you recognised him, giving it a bit of soul and some mining. Yeah, There's first album, debut album from that year, Soul Mining. And then underneath, we've got a couple of men smoking pipes. And a little extra clue by it being Ringo, really, because he played on the album. Ringo giving his ubiquitous peace sign, It's Pipes of Peace, Paul McCartney's album from 83, which is basically a kind of an offshoot of leftovers from 82's Tug of War, with Ringo on drums. Apparently the last time as well he ever played with Denny Laine. Of course, was with him in Wings for so long. Okay. The lyrics round. Did you get number 11? Oh, it was a big song at the time, wasn't it? Dear mummy, dear daddy, you had plans for me. I was your only son, and long before this baby boy could count to 3, you knew just what he would become. This is Bad Boys by Wham. Yeah, from Make It Big. Wham, 83 was the Wham year, wasn't it, when they really did make it big. And Bad Boys was a huge hit. Apparently, if you read Andrew Ridgeley's book, George Michael absolutely despised Bad Boys, saw it as standing for everything that he didn't want to be. But there we are. Number 12, Don't Crack Up, Bend Your Brains, See Both Sides, Throw Off Your Mental Chains. This is Howard Jones's new song from his album Humans Lib. You might well remember his performance on Top of the Pops with a very strange mime artist, a bald painted white, I think he was, mime artist with chains on him. Howard Jones, it wasn't his choice to have that, and he found it quite strange, I gather, having to perform with this guy alongside him. Okay, number 13, we can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind, because your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they ain't no friends of mine. Remember the safety dance? Big in America as well as here. You can tell how big in America it is, because the Simpsons use it quite regularly. There's some great moments of Homer Simpson there. We can dance, everybody, or we can dance. Everybody take off your pants. If you seem to remember him doing that at one point. Anyway, it's from Men Without Hats album, The Rhythm of Youth. They disappeared a bit, Men Without Hats, didn't they? But never mind. Apparently the song, although people have interpreted it as being about nuclear war and all kinds of things at the time, apparently it's just basically about doing what you want to do. And it was inspired by slam dancing, the view of people stopping audiences from doing their slam dancing. It's, basically you can slam dance if you want to, anyway, interestingly enough. Number 14, Pussycat, where have you been? I've been to London, now I'm queen. Sitting pretty, I don't wear suits, and my soul call me Oops, Puss in Boots. Adamant's number one of 83, from his album Strip. There with Phil Collins playing drums apparently for Puss in Boots there. Phil Collins seemed to play drums for every single song ever made, doesn't he? And there on the album cover, apparently that's Adamant recreating the famous Jane Russell pose. Okay, well, anyway, that was Puss in Boots. Right, number 15. I love the lyrics for this song. You've got to love them the whole way through. Buying bread from a man in Brussels. He was 6'4" and full of muscle. I said, "You're speaking my language," and all together now, because I'm sure you know it. He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. Absolutely. From the brilliant Down Under from Men at Work, which comes from their album, as you can see up there, which is actually almost impossible to get hold of, business as usual, on Spotify and the like, I think, at the moment. But wonderful song, isn't it? Sometimes taken apparently to be an unofficial Australian national anthem, which is fantastic. A song that basically talks about the fact that men vomit everywhere. If they're Australian, but so there's the Aussies for you. They're proud of themselves. And there's no rubbish there from them. Called The Men at Work, it was very much based around a kind of like Barry Humphries character. I think there was one called, was it Barry McKenzie at the time? It was this beer-swilling Aussie who just went around being a stereotype, and that inspired them. Okay, the connections between Roddy Frame, Madonna, Billy Bragg and Cyndi Lauper was that it was their debut in 83. All four of them released their debut albums in 83. Roddy Frame with Aztec Camera released the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Highland Hard Rain, which you should all go away and listen to right now, this second, because it is absolutely superb. What a debut. It's you know, poor Roddy Frame has had to suffer ever since from people when writing about his releases saying it's not quite Highland Hard Rain. And he wrote it so young as well. The absolutely beautiful song We Could Send Letters on it. He famously wrote at 16, the age of 16. Unbelievable. What a talent that man is. Anyway, so once you've gone and listened to Highland Hard Rain, come back and we can say that Madonna's debut album, Madonna, came out in 83. Billy Bragg's Life's a Riot with Spy vs. Spy came out in 86. 83 as well, and Cyndi Lauper's She's So Unusual as well, riding on the back of her first hits there. Okay, the 17 connections here between Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams, Paul Young's Wherever I Lay My Hat, Lionel Richie's All Night Long, and Human League's Fascination is a fairly straightforward one. It's brackets in their titles. Sweet Dreams, brackets, are made of this. Wherever I Lay My Hat, brackets, that's my home. All Night Long, as you can see there, brackets, all night. Weird that. I've never understood that. All night long, brackets, all night. Anyway, Human Leagues, of course, brackets, Keep Feeling, Fascination. So there you go. Brackets in the titles, a very 83 thing. 18, the connections between these. Well, it's a kind of a world tour. Not that these four went on a world tour. It's they released songs, or they had hits with songs that took us on a world tour. Even though it was initially released at the end of 82, Duran Duran's Rio was a huge hit in 83. Rio, of course. David Bowie had his second biggest hit of the year with China Girl, the redone version of the song he wrote for Iggy Pop in 77, I think, on The Idiot. China Girl got to number 2. Kraftwerk, this was the year they released their Tour de France track. And of course, Toto famously released Africa. Toto apparently had a massive year in America. They won the Grammy for Best Album and for Best Song as well, which wasn't Africa. It was Rosanna, isn't it? I think. So there we are. Toto, big 1983 hit in America. Okay, and then finally the picture round. Let's take you through these 7. Number 19, yeah, that might have been the hardest of them here, but surely you remember them. Hey You, the Rocksteady Crew. Yeah. 83, of course, we're seeing the kind of the beginning spark of breakdancing, aren't we? Anyway, the Rocksteady Crew. Number 20 was, of course, Funboy 3. I'm sure you got that. The three lead singers of the Specials having broken away to form their own band after the huge arguments that came about in the Specials at the end of their time there. Number 21. If you don't know this man, go and investigate him. This is Marshall Crenshaw. He is a fabulous songwriter. And he had, I think, his biggest hit album out this year. He's a fantastic songwriter. I really strongly recommend you to go and find out more about him. 22, you've got to recognise the Thompson Twins, haven't you? They had their debut this year, in their debut with a major label anyway, because they were a very different band before that, weren't they? 23 is the Mighty Wah, or the Wah, or just Wah, whatever you like to call them. 24, who appear to be looking at the Mighty Wah in that picture, admiringly, much as they may do, because that's Kajagoogoo, post Limahl, okay, as they were for a lot of 83. And 25, yeah, this is how the year began. Do you remember? Renee and Renato, Save Your Love. Now, if you've never heard the song Save Your Love by Renee and Renato, I strongly recommend that you go away and listen to it now. Not because it's any good, but because you should have to suffer like the rest of us did. Okay, so there's your first 25. Hope you're doing okay now. I hope you're over half marks so far. Let's go to the album covers now. This album cover was another debut. Tears for Fears, The Hurting, with Mad World, amongst others on there. ZZ Top, and Eliminator was number 27. On 28, I think a lot of people would have got this one. Yeah, this was U2's album War. U2 blew big this year, didn't they? First appearance on Top of the Pops, first chart bothering single with New Year's Day, and War went straight in at number 1 in the album charts. Same Boy, who was on Boy, but later on. And another debut. This was Metallica's debut, Kill 'Em All. Nice cover too. And number 30. The brilliant Swordfish Trombones from Tom Waits. Tom Waits going off in his own kind of direction after years of kind of piano ballads that were stolen by Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart, I was hearing this the other day. If you're watching the Top of the Pops repeats, you may have seen that we're on the Downtown Train period of Rod Stewart, where apparently, I think it's Pete Paphides who did this interview and said how he was interviewing him, and Rod Stewart basically said to him that Tom Waits should be proud that and pleased that a proper singer had done one of his songs. Rod, you got to love Rod, haven't you? Anyway, or maybe not. Okay, on to the Name That Intro round. I'm not going to replay them now, but I hope you were proud of my playing there. It's a lot better than previous weeks, wasn't it? I think it's the piano did it. Actually, no, I think it's that I wrote it out properly on manuscript paper. Helped me a lot more there. Number 31 was, of course, Uptown Girl. I was recreating on the piano the woes from the beginning. Uptown Girl, of course, coming from An Innocent Man. That was everywhere in 83, wasn't it? Advertised on telly all the time. I remember the advert, go out and get an innocent man. Yeah, there we are. 32, another number 1 of the year, Give It Up by Casey and the Sunshine Band from the 82 album, All in a Night's Work. Such an obscure album. I had trouble finding out what it was. Number 33, I was very proud of myself, my performance of this. Everything Counts by Depeche Mode. One of my favourite Depeche Mode songs, actually, that, from Construction Time Again. They're a hit of this year. Then Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes. from their album 90215. Big AOR, radio hit in America, Owner of a Lonely Heart. I'm not even sure if it didn't get to #1 in America, Owner of a Lonely Heart, but apparently caused consternation when people, having decided they loved this song, and then the subsequent 90215 album, went back and looked for Yes's back catalogue and got a bit of a surprise, because Owner of a Lonely Heart, of course, is not that representative of Yes's back catalogue, is it? And 35 was The Love Cats by The Cure from Japanese Whispers. Apparently, many of you Cure fans out there will know better than me, but apparently not Robert Smith's favourite song at all of his. Apparently, he said it was composed drunk, they filmed the video drunk, and the promotion was made drunk. It was a joke, but it was still their first UK top 10 hit. There you go. Hope my playing helped you out a little bit there. Bit more than usual. Okay, on to my covers round. Love Will Tear Us Apart. Have you heard this version? Paul Young on No Parlay covered it in a very Paul Young style, and some like it. When we were doing the 80s chart, and we were talking about No Parlay on Twitter, going back and forth, there were people who were saying they preferred it to the original, this version. Well, I would say to you, No Parlay is a great album. It was actually the first album I think I ever owned myself, and I had it on tape. I think I asked for it for Christmas, or my birth. I think it must have been Christmas at the end of this year, end of '83, and yeah, that tape. I remember I went off on a trip to Czechoslovakia. This was before, while it was still communist there, and stayed with the family there, and very nice bloke there. And I offered to give him any tapes that I had with me, because it was hard for him to get them, and he took my Paul Young. So that's what happened to my Paul Young No Parlay. There's a story you probably didn't need to hear, but never mind. Dear Prudence, I'm sure many of you knew, was Susie and the Banshees doing their creditable version of the Beatles classic, which is on their album Hyena, spelt with a kind of an AE rather than just the E. And of course, Dear Prudence, if you don't know, is a Beatles song, was one of the ones that John Lennon wrote in India, making use of the kind of finger-picking guitar style that he had been taught by Donovan while they were out there. And the story goes, it was directed at Prudence, sister of Mia Farrow, Prudence Farrow, that's it, who went a bit kind of like mad trying to discover God, and got a little bit overwrought and locked herself in a room, and they were trying to coax her out to come out and have fun. Now, the Johnny B. Good one, I don't know if you knew this one, who would cover it this year. It was Peter Tosh on his album Mama Africa. The lyrics changed. It's about a Jamaican boy playing reggae, rather than playing the guitar like he's ringing a bell. Anyway, number 39 is Only You by the Flying Pickets. Of course, Yazoo's song, but the year 1983 closed with the Flying Pickets at #1 with their a cappella version of that, if you remember, from their album Lost Boys. You might well remember. Do you remember the Christmas? I think it was the Christmas edition of Top of the Pops, not the last one before Christmas, where the Flying Pickets came on all dressed up as like snowmen and the like. Very strange. Have you ever seen the rain? Well, in '83 it was Bonnie Tyler. I mean, loads of people have covered Have You Seen the Rain? Rod Stewart again, who probably thinks he did a better job than Creedence Clearwater Revival. Johnny Cash in a kind of disappointingly non-Johnny Cash version as well. And the Ramones as well, in a very Ramones version. But Bonnie Tyler did it in '83 to opening her album Faster Than the Speed of Night. There we go. Okay, so on to the Now It's Rock All Music round. There it is. That's what it looked like first time. I had it on vinyl. and That's What I Call Music. I remember when it first came out. I bought all the first 9. That's when I stopped. After the first 9. Don't know why. Anyway, and there is the very famous picture that inspired the title. Now That's What I'll Call Music, of the cockerel performing for the pig, which is also why the pig then became a symbol of the rest of the Now albums for so long. Reproduced inside the album, that was. I think it was an important moment at the beginning of Now That's What I Call Music. So there's plenty to go here. The opening song on the album was Phil Collins with You Can't Hurry Love. That's how it started off there from Hello, I Must Be Going. The latest Now album is 107. If you're interested, that's what it looks like. Cover design hasn't changed a huge amount, has it? 107. Blimey. And it's amazing they're still doing it in times when literally you could just do it yourself. They do playlists now, I think, on Spotify, so you can just listen to the Now playlist. But yeah, and I don't know if you realise that it was just 2 record companies, and that was how it worked, that they got together, decided they had such great music they wanted to show it off. And particularly after success of, I think the K-Tel compilations. Do you remember K-Tel coming on TV and advertising not available in the shops? Always used to say, didn't it? Not available in the shops. You could only get it by mail order. And they had Raiders of the Pop charts, I think, and that inspired them. Well, it was Virgin and EMI that got together. And that's why some of the number ones of '83 didn't make it onto the album, because they weren't Virgin or EMI songs. But it's incredible. There's only 4 of them. Every Breath You Take was one. True, Let's Dance, and Billie Jean. They were the 4 number 1 hits in '83 that didn't make it onto the album. I'm going to say give yourself a point there if you got 2 of those. That's me being generous there. If you got 2 of those, give yourself a point. And well done if you knew all 4. Number 45. Which of these artists does not appear twice on the album? Well, UB40 have Red Red Wine, and also Please Don't Make Me Cry. Culture Club have obviously Karma Chameleon, but also close the album out with Victims. Kajagoogoo are on for Too Shy and the Post Lamar Big Apple. So it is actually Duran Duran who are on for just Is There Something I Should Know? Their big number 1 hit. First number 1, I think, wasn't it? Also, the other people who appeared twice in the album that I mentioned, Phil Collins appeared as a solo artist for You Can't Hurry Love and with Genesis for That's All. Limahl had a solo one, Only for Love, and appeared singing Kajagoogoo's Too Shy. And then the really obscure one, Heaven 17, appears singing Temptation, and then are the backing singers on Tina Turner's Let's Stay Together, the version of Let's Stay Together. There you go. Plenty, you know much more about Now That's What I Call Music now, don't you? Okay, which group ditched their makeup this year? It was Kiss. Was there another group that wore makeup all the time? 47. It's a great story, this one. The artist who released an album with a pressing of only 1 copy this year, it was Jean-Michel Jarre with his album Music for Supermarkets, making some kind of comment about music piracy, recording from the radio, that kind of an idea. So he made 1 copy and apparently destroyed all the pressings and everything afterwards, so it couldn't be repressed again later. And it was sold at auction for about £10,000, or the equivalent of about £10,000, to a Frenchman, Monsieur Gerard. There you go. The auction he bought it at was he bought it, by the way, because he'd had a bad car accident and he woke up to the sound of a Jean-Michel Jarre song, so he was a huge fan of his. The auction was broadcast live on the radio, and that was the only time the music was ever played in full. Oh. There are bootleg copies in existence, apparently, if you're a Jean-Michel Jarre completist, although not very good quality. And in fact, actually, some people have tried to recreate it since. But then also, Jean-Michel Jarre has apparently reused a lot of the music in later things, so he kind of ruined it a little bit. Good story, though. Never mind. Right, 48, the Smiths' first single. There are plenty of Smiths fans out there who would know this inside out. Of course, it was Hand in Glove, which was then re-released. Well, not re-released, it was then re-recorded later the same year and released as a single with Sandy Shaw taking the lead version and getting to number 27. So the odd ones out. Right, so we had here Mick Jones, Phil Lynott, Dave Mustaine and Limahl. Well, the odd one out is Phil Lynott. Why? Well, all four of these left their group this year. Okay. But Phil Lynott was the only one who did it voluntarily. Phil Lynott disbanded Thin Lizzy. The other three were sacked. Mick Jones was sacked from The Clash. Limahl was sacked from Kajagoogoo. And poor old Dave Mustaine was sacked from Metallica just as they released their first album and went on their way to becoming one of the biggest bands in the world ever. Poor man. And number 50, the odd one out. Now, this is less complex, this one, really. If you think about them in 1983, and the starting point might well be New Order, because, of course, in 83, as well as Power, Corruption and Lies, probably their best album, I would say, and many would agree, they also released the biggest selling 12-inch single of all time, didn't they, that year? Blue Monday. You starting to get it now? Blue Monday. Elton John released From Too Low for Zero. I guess that's why they call it the blues. Wah, or the mighty Wah in the top corner, released The Story of the Blues, while UB40 released Red Red Wine. So there you are. They're the only ones who didn't have the blues, shall we say. Just the reds instead. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got plenty from that. There's a new quiz coming next Sunday for another year. As always, please remember, if you've enjoyed this and had fun with it, to donate to my Just Giving page to raise money for Young Minds. Please follow me on Twitter, give me any feedback on this, and tell me how well you did. It's always great to know what mark people got and how well it's going. Okay, so I will see you again with a new quiz next Sunday.